This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Chris Doherty, Gangrene's Feisty Frontman, with still rather drink than fuck, is about the legendary life and career of a singer, songwriter, guitarist that was so instrumental in the formation of East Coast hardcore punk and who became an important forerunner and spokesman for crossover thrash and speed metal in the late 1980s. Gangrene's 1985 punk cover of the pop rock band Till Tuesday's huge hit, Voices Carry, was even better than her own version by the song's original singer Amy Mann. Their 1986 release, Another Wasted Night, is considered to be one of the best hardcore punk albums of all time, and their notorious win in the 1986 WBCN Radio Rock of Boston Rumble over the more mainstream Hearts on Fire, led by future Yardbirds axeman Johnny A, sent a powerful message to members of the global music industry and record execs everywhere. Many moons ago, the WBCN Rumble was Boston's biggest local music event of the year, and winning it carried a lot of weight. My personal memories of seeing them perform their song Alcohol live and hearing the always packed audience to screaming the song's legendary lyrics, "I'd rather drink than fuck," along with the band as the walls shook, still makes me smirk and still sends shivers up and down my spine. True fact. Their 1990 international tour with Social Distortion made them superstars. And now, more than 30 years later, Chris Doherty still sings on stage, and he remains a crucial and superlative spectator and societal speaker on the Boston music scene. Welcome to Wachtelligence, Chris.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the kind words, AJ.
You and I go back forever, man. You know, this is so much fun. I'm just so glad that you were able to take the time to do this. All right, let's start in the early years. You know, you started in 1980 in Braintree. You were 15 years old. You had the original line. It was Bill Manley on bass, Mike Dean on drums. What's the story behind that?
I mean, for some reason, you know, a sleepy suburban town like Braintree spawns a lot of punks. You know, Jerry's Kids are from Braintree also, who I played with for a while and played on their landmark album, Is This My World?
We'll talk about that. I know that, but you guys, the original lineup, you broke up in 83. Why'd you guys break up in 83 and then you regrouped again in 84?
The drummer Mike Dean decided to become a Marine.
Oh, man. So how'd you get the name Gangrene?
Actually, Bob Sensi from Jerry's Kids started up. No, he wanted to call his band Gangrene, but the rest of the guys like Jerry's Kids better. So we took it.
Hey, who were your early influences on vocals, guitar, and songwriting back in those days?
I'd say Jake Burns from Stiff Little Fingers. And we did a U.S. tour with them, and it was just amazing seeing my, idol play those songs that I love so much every night.
You had a lot of the band members you changed over the years, and you broke up again for the second time in 1992. And, you know, you're the only constant member from 2005 to the present. You know, let's talk first about that great album, This Is Boston, Not L.A. That's the first time a lot of people heard about you. That was 1982, and you had the first incarnation of the band, and you contributed 7 tracks. What songs did you do on that?
I like Have Fun, which is still my favorite. The lyrics are very simple. We just want to have some fun. We just want to have some fun while we're young enough to get away with it. We just wanna have a fun. We just wanna have a fun while we're young enough to get away with it. ago, my manager suggested that I changed it. We just want to have some fun. We just want to have some fun while we're still alive to get away with it.
What did being on the Boston, This Is Boston, Not LA album mean to the band?
I mean, we were honored. It was our first time in a recording studio, and it was a big thing because that my address was on the liner notes, and I would get fan mail from Brazil, all over Europe, Australia. You know, I come home from high school every day, check the mail, and pull like 4 or 5 letters, grab my guitar and skateboard, and head to practice.
Hey, what was the Boston music scene like in the early 80s? There was punk, new wave, mainstream music division, and radio college, and commercial radio. There was a pop, rock, folk, blues scene. It was a wild scene. How did you guys fit in? What did you think about the scene in the early 80s?
It was awesome. I mean, we were young, troublemaking kids, so it was perfect for us.
You broke up for the first time in '83, and you were talking about Jerry's Kids. Who was in the band with you at the time? Bob Sensi?
Bob Sensi, yeah. Rick Jones and Brian Besker. And Brian ended up joining Gangrene when we had Walter Gustafson playing drums. He was in the Outlets also. One of my favorite people on this planet.
Hey, and that album, Is This My World? It was great. But, in 1985, you released a 7-inch EP, Sold Out, on Tang Records, your first band release. Talk about that. How'd you get involved with Tang Records?
Well, back then, Curtis was a friend. And to this day, he's still one of my best friends. In fact, next month, I'm making my annual trip to San Diego, where he lives, for birthday.
In the band now, you had Chuck Stilfin and his brother Glenn on bass, and you were just talking about Wally Gustafson too. That was a great band. That's when I first started hearing about you guys.
And Walter was in the Outlets at the same time also, and they got signed to a record deal. And they kind of gave him an ultimatum, one or the other.
You don't give Walter Gustafson ultimatums.
No, you do not.
In 1986, Another Wasted Night came out, and you had Voices Carry on it.
Well, the reason we did that, we had just got back from a summer tour, and we heard that song Voices Carry everywhere, including Mexico. Anywhere that song was just played so much on the radio. We figured, let's see what we can do with it.
I remember Voices Carry, your version was on the Jukebox at Father's too. And Jill Weinstein was the bartender, and John Felice's girlfriend from the Real Kids, his girlfriend Annie, were behind the bar. And every Sunday at Father's too, 2 blocks away from the Rat in Kenmore Square, everybody would come in. And you would, I'd be hanging out with you and Brian Betzker, your drummer then, and Joe Gittleman, who was your bassist at the time. And you would never guzzle me.
It opened at noon on Sunday. And there were times I was sitting on the front steps waiting for Jill to open the door. And by the time you got there, like 9 to 10 o'clock at night, I could have had 12 to 15 beers in my stomach. And In fact, I was with you. It would have been
Joe Gittleman did, though. He was good.
It would have been a bombing holocaust.
You know, I remember on the jukebox there, alcohol would be on, and the whole bar, there'd be 100 people in the bar, and when it came on, your lyrics, I'd rather drink than fuck. Everybody in the bar would shout those words. The walls would shake. And you know, you would also hear on that on the jukebox, My Academy, Mission of Burma, Bobby Darin's Mac the Knife. Well, how cool was that? I'd be drinking with you in the bar, Fathers too, and everybody'd be singing your song.
Yeah, well, it was on the jukebox at the Rat too. And Willie Dennison would tell me that when they first put it on there, that if they had a table of people eating lunch that they couldn't get out of there, it would take it too long. They put that song on and they like immediately leave.
That's hysterical.
One time I was in the Rat with my good friend Darren Hill, and we're just sitting down having a beer. They came on the jukebox and there were like 30 punks just singing every single word to it. And they didn't know the guy that wrote it was standing 10 feet away from them.
Did Gangrene ever do any other covers besides Voices carrying the free songs?
I mean, live, we used to occasionally do Fight for Your Right to Party by the Beastie Boys. You know, they were friends of ours back in the day. And a whole lot of Rosie by AC/DC we play live.
When you think of punk music, it's usually about the lyrics of being so anti-something. But your lyrics are basically about getting laid, getting drunk.
That's what it was all about back then.
How important are the lyrics to Gangrene songs?
They come from the heart. Like, one of my favorite songs is off the album Another Case of Brutality. It's called Out on the Couch. Actually, you know, you got to live it to know it. I was telling someone was asking me about that song the other day, and I say, I sleep on my couch. I probably spend 16 hours a day, and in fact, I'm sitting on it right here, right now.
So where did you get the line from alcohol, I'd rather drink than fuck?
That just came up top of my head. I knew it would be controversial, and people would remember it. One time I was in a hotel room up in Montreal with this girl, and she said, I thought you'd rather drink than fuck. And I said, look, it's 2:00 in the morning. You're not a six-pack. You're going to have to do.
That's funny. Hey, who has covered alcohol? I know Tankard, the German thrash metal band, has. The black metal band, Impaled Nazarene from Finland. Who else? Dropkick Murphys did.
Oh, yeah, Metallica used to played it when they were on tour with Ozzy, that first tour they went out. And first time I met them, I was down at Great Woods. And I went to Hetfield and I said, he used to cover my song Alcohol, and he goes, I never covered one of your fucking songs. He was such a dick. And then later that night, I was drinking with Lars, and I mentioned Gangrene. I said, you know, there was a picture of you in front of the Great Wall of China on the cover of Kerrang with you wearing my shirt. And he goes, oh, yeah. No doubt about it. Can't live without it. I mean, he was fucking cool. James was a total fucking dick.
Hey, that song originally was an instrumental, and you called it the drinking song. How did it evolve?
it was hard and heavy and really fun to play. And it just didn't have lyrics to it, so yeah, I got creative.
Hey, which one is your favorite cover of the song?
I mean, the Dropkick Murphys one is live. The Tanker one's kind of tame. Metallica didn't, release or record it, but I'm just honored when anybody tell me they like it or even record it. I think there's been like 16 different bands that have recorded it.
Another Wasted Night, one of the best hardcore punk albums of all time. That's what everybody says. Why?
It's fast, it's furious, and it's fun. And Thrasher Magazine named it the #1 skate rock album of all time.
There's so many different types of punk. Thrash, hardcore, speed metal. What are the differences?
Well, what I used to say is, between us and the speed metal bands, I used to say they have longer hair and do longer guitar solos.
So let's go back to the band. Yeah, the Stuffin Brothers left to join Mallet Head, and you had a relationship with Budweiser Beer, and Wally left to join the Outlets we were talking before. So talk about Budweiser Beer. How'd that happen? The king of beers, king of bands. I love it. That was what was on all your T-shirts.
Yeah, I just, it was constantly it was in our life every day. We'd go down to the rehearsal space with a suitcase of Budweiser, and when the beer was gone, practice was over. So
that's hysterical. Hey, Alec Peters, your manager, your great manager. I got to be good friends with him when we were drinking on Sundays and Father's too. And, I remember once we were talking about the Boston music scene, how it was very divided. It was punk and new wave on one side and everything else, mainstream blues, C&W, everything else on the other side. And Alec goes to me, AJ, he laughs, we don't give a fuck about Boston. We make all our money touring Europe. How important, how accurate was that?
Very. And Alec has been since, the early 80s up until today, one of the best friends I've ever had. He's always been there for me. He and I are working on a couple of projects now.
We'll talk about them in a few minutes. Alec was just a brilliant guy. You guys made a ton of money, but I think that the way I got to know you was drinking. You guys was drinking at Father's. But I remember the 1986 Rumble, the WBCN Rumble, the Rock of Boston. And that was the biggest event of the year. And I was a judge in some of the preliminaries. And when it was the finals, it was Hearts on Fire with Johnny A., who later joined the Yardbirds, became their lead guitarist. And also he played with Bobby Whitlock from Derek and the Dominoes. And against you guys, I'm sitting next to Albert O in the finals, and you spit into the audience, and the place went wild.
Oh, I remember throwing a beer into the audience.
Can you do that in 2022?
Would I? Yeah, but I can't play guitar now. I'm on the disabled list.
Johnny A. says about that the Rumble that you guys just were the better band that night. He had regrouped when Carter Allen asked the band to perform for the Rumble. And what's your version of what happened? Why'd you guys win that night?
It's all about entertainment, and we did a better job entertaining the crowd than they did. Being a young kid in Boston, it's something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to play. In fact, we wanted to play the year before, and they wouldn't let us in. And then when everything was, when it was supposed to start this year, we were already supposed to be on tour, and they kind of said they strong armed us. They said if you don't play, we'll blackball you from the station. So they kind of forced us to play that year. I guess they wanted to show that that they were going in a different direction musically.
Well, they were fighting WFNX and WAAF at the time, and all the college radio stations. Did winning the Rumble help you guys career-wise in any way?
Did it help us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were the last band that it did help, because there was always that Rumble curse that people used to talk about, but it helped propel us up to the next level.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, it was at the Orpheum. I mean, nowadays, what do they do with it? The Middle East, maybe, or if they even still do it.
If they even do it, yeah.
Yeah, not only by winning did it help us, but it fucked a lot of the future bands, because so many of the sponsors dropped out. I think Jordan Marsh was the first one to say, we'll never participate in that shit again. Like Daddy's Music, they were giving away a keyboard or something like that. That was one of the prizes, and they didn't want to do it. And some guy owned a rehearsal complex down in Brockton. One of his prizes was a month of free rehearsal, and he wanted to renege too.
I never even knew that. In 1986, after you won the Rumble, I had to convince the Beat magazine to do a cover story on you and let me to do it. David G., who owned it, and Michael Hill, the editor, they hated you guys. And you guys hated the Beat magazine too, but we were good friends from drinking together, and you knew, hey, back then, today, you have something to say, I'll listen to it. So I did the cover story on you. It took me a lot of effort to get it. And I had to argue for 2 weeks to get the permission to do it. And we met at Father's 2 on a Sunday. And we took our beers out back and stood next to the dumpster while we drank, smoked weed, and I interviewed you. And
funny.
And the interview was full of curses. So I did a glossary with like asterisk, exclamation mark, dot, and then I'd say fuck. Yeah. You guys just didn't. Every time we hang out, you tell me the only reason we're even doing this because we like you. And I said, well, the only reason I'm doing this is because I like you.
Yeah, it was mutual.
Yeah. Hey, but that was funny. You remember
we're both great fucking guys. Just ask us, we'll tell you.
I remember that interview. Just You guys just out back, we were just smoking and drinking. It was just a lot of fun. Right behind the bar, right next to the dumpster. And we were just talking and talking. I'm writing my notes down because I didn't have a tape recorder back in 1986. It was just a good memory in my mind. And I remember in 1989, you fired Joe Gittleman, who went to the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. He once told me it was over a woman. Is that fact or fiction?
No. You know, I hate to say because he didn't play good enough, but he's become one of the best bass players out there. Through playing that style with the Boss Tones and touring constantly with them. In hindsight, it was a big mistake.
What would have happened if you would have stayed, if you had kept him in the band differently? What would have happened?
We would have stayed on the same path we were on, which was really, we were just kind of treading water. We weren't getting better or going anywhere.
In 1990, you toured with Social Distortion. Did you blow the headliners off the stage or what?
We tried to every night. And we read the interview with Mike Ness in RollingStone.com. In the interview, it said, asked him about touring with Neil Young. The Social Distortion. After we toured with Neil Young, and then the journalist asked, well, so before that, you toured with Gangrene, who were kind of the anti-straight edge band, because Mike's had gotten sober.
Then you disbanded and you founded Clover, and you were on Mercury Records and Hammered. How are these bands any different from Gangrene?
Nobody knew about them, so the show sucked. Clover made a little noise in Boston, but you know, even like going to like Albany or something like that. I mean, we played this club that Gangrene had played 3 years ago, and it was jam packed, and we'd have 15 people there, including the staff. Clover.
In 96, you and the Stilfen brothers and Wally Gustafson regrouped and played 5 gigs, including one at the Rat and one at CBGB's. Talk to me about the Rat and Jimmy Harold's importance.
I love Jimmy. I just attended his wake a month or so ago. Well, you know, you remember when the Eagles got back together and they called it When Hell Freezes Over tour?
Yeah.
I call that When Beer Sucks tour, because, you know, like someone asked me, when are we going to get back together? I said, when beer sucks.
You guys have played everywhere. Clubs. I've seen you in clubs. I remember I used to see you in churches. What's the story behind Gangrene and punk rockers playing in churches?
Church, VFW Hall, any place we could get. You know, it's going to be a new wave teen dance. And little did they know what they're getting into. I mean, the Misfits did a show at a church in Cambridge one time. That might be the one you're talking about. That was one of the best ever. And, you know, you got all these fucking punks in there with engineer boots on. You know, and if you were trying to find the location of the show, you just drive around until you saw, you know, this line of like 100 punks. Not to quote the Generation song, but Generation X song, but it's like nowadays, if you're looking for an AA meeting, you drive by a place and a bunch of people standing outside smoking, drinking coffee, you know you found it.
And the walls always shook when you played in the church too.
When I walk into a church, the confession doors start flapping.
That's funny. So, what do you think about the importance, you know, of the Rat? What were the differences between the Rat audiences and the CBGB's audiences?
Always had a great time at CB's and at the Rat. I think the Rat was like the other 6 days of the week that we weren't at Father's, we'd be at the Rat. And I have often said that that was what kind of made the Boston scene so great, because you could have a couple of guys from Gang Green, Phil Cruiser from the Neats, Dan Zans from the Del Fuegos, somebody else from a different, a metal band, all sitting around that back table number 5 in the back getting drunk. And I was really proud of that showed what a great music scene the city was.
You guys toured Europe and the U.S. a lot. You got a chance to see how great Boston was compared to everybody else in 97 and 98. And in the early 2000s, Gang Green played a couple of gigs in Boston and New York City. And you had Bob Sensi on guitar for a couple of those gigs. And his name keeps coming up from Jerry's Kids. Sensi's a great guy.
Oh, he and I go way back. I mean, we grew up in the same town.
He's still playing around now.
Oh, he's got a new band, Bob Sensi Punk Band, and they're awesome. I've got their CD right here. Some of the best stuff I've heard in a while.
In 2005, yeah.
I got Bob Farapples from the FU's playing drums. And first time I saw him play, I said, Bob, I never thought you were that good. He's gotten a lot better. Great drummer now. He's always been a great guy, but he's holding that band together, and again, they are good. They're awesome.
Another band that comes up a lot, in what we're talking about is the Dropkick Murphys. In 2005, you had a new Gang Green lineup, and you supported the Dropkick Murphys, and that was when Rick Barton from the Outlets was in the band. Barton's still around with his son touring Europe, I think.
Yeah. The Continentals. No, Rick and I were such great friends, but our wives, like my wife didn't like him, and his wife certainly didn't like me. And if we got together, there's a good chance neither of us was coming home for like 2 or 3 days. So I stopped hanging out with him, and then he got sober, so I stopped hanging out with him.
That's funny because, whenever I run into Rick Barton, my memories of him is even to this day, I run into him, and he's always like very serious and very, I really have to, he's a very funny guy. And I just sit there and I have to listen to him. Very funny guy. All right. So in 2007, you toured Florida and up and down the East Coast, and then in Europe with the Lucky Scars, and the Irish gigs on a film somewhere. Where can I find the film of you cats on tour in Ireland?
It was actually, we were in Belfast on St. Patrick's Day. And it really wasn't, it's really not a big deal over there. I mean, they just fucking party every day like it's St. Patrick's Day. They don't give a shit about it. It's more of an American holiday.
All right. Tell me about your current health scare.
On October 28th, 2018, I suffered a catastrophic career-ending stroke, which left my left side of my body paralyzed. I mean, I can walk around a little now, and I couldn't at first for a long time. But my arm is still paralyzed. I'm working on that every day, and I go to therapy a few times a week.
But you're still on stage singing.
Yeah. Since I had a stroke, people would say, Chris, can you still sing? And I'd say, I never really could.
So what's in the future for you? You were talking about you have a couple of projects with Alec Peters. What's going on now with you?
But that's consuming a lot of my thought and a lot of my time. We are co-creators of an adult animated cartoon called Eddie's Saloon. And the way that came about is that, like I said, Alex is such a great friend. I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 3 months after I had the stroke. And he would call me every day. We just shoot the shit and laugh about things we did before, situations we've been in, and people that we know and characters. And the show has 32 characters in it. Most of them are from Boston, and they're like true. I mean, they were characters before we made them part of the show. And Eddie Swan is just based on a kind of like a towny bar. We play street hockey in the parking lot. We have a softball team and we play against other bars, and fights break out. Just good old fashioned American fun shit. And but I don't know if you ever heard of Worm. They were like my favorite Boston punk band. They're still carrying the punk rock torch. And their singer and guitar player Mike Brennan, he and I have become really good friends. In fact, I give him guitar lessons every Wednesday night. I mean, I can't play, but I get 40 years of experience in my head, so I can certainly teach.
Are there any old Gangrene songs or live shows you still have unreleased that you're planning on letting out anytime in the future?
Yes. Back in 1983, I mean, the three of us are still in high school. We flew down to Washington, D.C. to play this place called the Wilson Center. And that's coming out. And then before I had my stroke, I recorded 11 new songs.
And what are you going to do with them?
So, well, I think I'm going to that was actually supposed to be a split album with the Freeze. We did a couple of Freeze songs. They did a couple of Gangrene songs. And, each had some new material.
That sounds fucking great.
Yeah, Cliff from the Freeze is kind of cock blocking the whole thing.
There's really no Massachusetts music scene anymore after, post-pandemic. Is punk music dead? You're talking about Worm. What other local bands that you still listen to? Who should people be listening to locally and nationally for punk music today?
Well, I'd say Worm and Rockin' Bob's new band. Bob Sessions' new band. Two favorite in the state right now.
What about nationally?
Murphy's Law is still out there kicking it. They're still out there touring.
With the world in a mess today, why don't you run for president?
Because of the one statement you made earlier, I'd rather drink than fuck. I could see, my opponent bringing up that shit. This is the type of kid he was. You get the beer, we get the time, you get the coke, give me a line. Do you really don't want that guy running the country?
Yes, Chris, but you know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah. I know how to party.
All right. I have to ask you the question I ask all my guests, the final question. You have to please remember, what was the first band that you ever, the first concert you ever attended?
That's easy. First, local Boston show I ever went to was Neighborhoods Mission of Birmingham in La Peste at the Bradford Ballroom. And Alec Peters was involved in that too. He was the promoter there. The first time I was in a concert experience, my sister Sheila took me to the song remains the same, the Led Zeppelin movie when it first came out. And kids were drinking beer and smoking weed, and it was just anarchy. She goes, "This is just like being at a concert." I was like, "I like this." That was a life-changing moment. That's when rock and roll became really, really important to me.
When did you smoke your first joint?
You were 11 or 12. I was at Bruce Springsteen at the Boston Garden. Someone passed it to me, and I didn't want to be uncool, so I took a hit.
That's very funny. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's so cool that I'm still hanging out with you and talking to you.
Feel free to call me in. I'd love to just have a conversation with you. And next time I'm going out somewhere in the city, I'll keep you posted. Maybe we can meet up. How many beers did you drink during this?
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.